Karoline Leavitt had always been a woman on a mission. As the White House press secretary under President Donald J. Trump, her days were packed with briefings, national press appearances, and crafting the kind of messaging that could sway millions. Yet, on that chilly Friday afternoon, something compelled her to do something spontaneous. Something she hadn't done in years. "I need to get out of this bubble," she muttered to herself. Instead of heading straight to her DC residence after a long day of press briefings, she instructed her driver to make a detour. "Take me to the nearest Walmart," she said, ignoring the puzzled glance from her security detail. The Walmart in Arlington, Virginia wasn't flashy. It was the kind of place where working-class Americans shopped for groceries, kids' clothes, and everyday essentials. As Karoline stepped inside, no cameras, no entourage except for one plainclothes security officer, she felt oddly at peace. It was here, among the aisles of cereal boxes and bargain DVDs, that Karoline remembered what real America looked like. And it was here she would meet someone who would change the course of her life just as much as Karoline would change hers. She strolled through the store slowly, grabbing a box of goldfish crackers and some travel-size shampoo. As she approached the checkout lanes, her eyes landed on a young female cashier, maybe in her mid-20s. Her name tag read Jessica. Her eyes were red and puffy. It was clear she had been crying. Karoline stood in her line, pretending not to notice at first, but her gut told her something was wrong. She watched as Jessica tried to maintain composure, offering a faint smile to the man in front of her buying diapers and formula. "Hi there," Karoline said gently when it was her turn, setting her items on the conveyor belt. Jessica didn't make eye contact. "Hi. Did you find everything okay?" "I did," Karoline said warmly, noticing how the girl's voice cracked slightly. "Are you okay?" Jessica blinked, clearly holding back tears. "Yes, ma'am. Just long day." Karoline handed her a tissue from her purse. "I've had a few of those too." Jessica finally looked up, and when she did, recognition dawned. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God. You're Karoline Leavitt. You work for President Trump." Karoline smiled, guilty as charged. "But right now, I'm just someone who wants to make sure you're okay." Jessica couldn't hold back anymore. She wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. "I'm sorry. I'm just overwhelmed. My mom's in the hospital. No insurance. I'm picking up extra shifts to pay for her care. And my car broke down this morning. I just feel like everything's collapsing." Karoline's expression softened. She reached into her purse, pulled out a notepad, and scribbled something. Then she handed Jessica a business card. "Jessica, I want you to call this number tomorrow. Her name is Marie. She works in community outreach. Tell her I sent you. She'll know what to do." Jessica stared at the card like it was made of gold. "Why are you helping me?" Karoline leaned in. "Because sometimes, the smallest cracks are where the light gets in." Jessica's lips quivered as she mouthed a thank you. Karoline gave her hand a reassuring squeeze, grabbed her bag, and walked out into the cold night air. She didn't know it yet, but what she'd set in motion that evening would ripple far beyond one broken-hearted cashier. Jessica barely slept that night. The events of the day kept replaying in her mind, the stress, the tears, and then her. Karoline Leavitt, a woman she'd only seen on TV defending policies and answering rapid-fire questions from reporters with unshakable confidence, had seen her. Not just noticed her, but really seen her pain. The business card sat on her kitchen table, illuminated by the soft orange glow of a lamp. "Marie, Community Outreach, Office of the Press Secretary," it read. A phone number was scribbled below in Karoline's tidy handwriting. Jessica's fingers hovered over her phone. What if it was a joke? What if they didn't help people like her? But then she thought of her mother lying in a hospital bed with tubes and monitors, racking up thousands in unpaid bills. She thought of the car sitting idle in the driveway, too expensive to fix. She thought of the weight that had lived in her chest for months. She picked up the phone and dialed. "Office of the Press Secretary, this is Marie," came a friendly but efficient voice. "Hi, my name is Jessica. Karoline Leavitt gave me your card yesterday. She told me to call." There was a pause, then a warm shift in Marie's tone. "Ah, yes. Jessica from Walmart, right? I've been expecting your call." Jessica's throat tightened. "You have. Karoline told me what happened. She doesn't forget people." Can you come into our office tomorrow morning? Wait, seriously? Like, to the White House? Marie chuckled. Not quite. We have a community outreach center just off Constitution Avenue. Don't worry, it's friendly, not formal. We'll take care of everything. Jessica was stunned. Okay. Yes. I'll be there. The next morning, she showed up dressed in her best clothes, a navy blue blouse and black jeans. They weren't fancy, but they were clean and pressed. She walked into a sleek, modest office tucked between federal buildings. Inside, she was greeted with coffee, a warm smile from Marie, and a whole new sense of possibility. For the next hour, Jessica poured out her story. Her father had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving her mother with no income. Jessica had dropped out of community college to work full-time, and lately it felt like every door had closed on her. Marie listened patiently, occasionally jotting notes and asking gentle questions. We have a fund through the American Families Resilience Act, Marie explained. It allows us to assist with temporary financial hardship. We can cover your mom's hospital bills up to a certain amount. We can also refer her to a Medicaid navigator. Jessica blinked, stunned. You're serious? Marie nodded. Dead serious. But we don't just want to patch the problem. We want to help you thrive. We have a career mentorship program, too. Would you be interested? Jessica could hardly believe what she was hearing. Yes. Absolutely. I don't even know what to say. Marie smiled. Just say you'll show up. The rest we'll figure out together. Meanwhile, back at the White House, Karoline sat in her office, scrolling through briefing papers and preparing for the next fiery exchange with the national press. But when Marie texted her, she came. She's in. A small smile crept across Karoline's face. In the world of politics, everything felt like a war, an endless battle of narratives, polls, and perception. But moments like these? They reminded her why she had gotten into public service to begin with. To make government feel human. To remind people that they mattered. And Jessica was about to discover just how powerful that reminder could be. Over the next few weeks, Jessica's life began to shift. Gently at first, then like a tidal wave of transformation. True to their word, Marie and the community outreach team cleared the hospital bills. A team of legal volunteers helped enroll Jessica's mother into a Medicaid program that would cover future treatments. But perhaps the most surprising gift came in the form of opportunity. Jessica had joined the career mentorship program thinking it would be a few workshops and a resume tweak. Instead, she was paired with Elena, a no-nonsense, sharp-witted staffer who had once been a single mom herself before rising through the ranks of nonprofit policy. This isn't about just getting you a new job, Elena told her during their first coffee meeting. It's about building a life. What do you want, Jessica? Not just for next month, but for 5 years from now. Jessica blinked. No one had asked her that before, not seriously. Her life had been about surviving, not dreaming. I always loved writing, she admitted. I used to want to be a journalist. Elena lit up. Then let's go chase that. From there, it was a blur of resume building, interview coaching, and networking events. Elena pulled every string she had. Jessica got a part-time internship with a local news site. It didn't pay much, but it was enough to spark her confidence. She even began working on a blog, documenting the everyday struggles of working-class women like herself, blending storytelling with commentary on public policy. She called it Voices in the Checkout Lane. The blog quietly picked up steam. A few hundred readers turned into a few thousand. A local news channel reached out for an interview. And before long, Jessica was speaking on panels, representing the very demographic she'd once thought invisible. Back in Washington, Karoline continued to follow Jessica's progress from afar. One afternoon, while prepping for a press briefing, she noticed a tweet trending. This young woman's journey from Walmart cashier to political storyteller is what the American dream looks like. At Voices in the Lane is a must-read. At Karoline Leavitt. The post went viral. It wasn't long before reporters were asking Karoline about it at briefings. Is it true you met her by chance? One journalist asked. Karoline smiled. It wasn't chance. It was divine timing. The story caught fire not just in conservative circles but across mainstream America. Jessica's blog was picked up for syndication by a national media outlet. And then came the big ask. A televised town hall was being organized to discuss working-class struggles in America. The White House had proposed hosting it, yes, under the Trump administration, as part of a broader campaign to connect with grassroots voices. And Karoline had just one person in mind to open the event. Jessica. Jessica stared at the invitation when it came. Her knees wobbled. "Opening speaker?" she whispered. "They want me?" "They need you," Elena told her. "Your voice is what's missing in rooms like that." The night of the town hall, she stood backstage wearing a modest black dress, her blog's logo printed on a small pin near her heart. Karoline approached her moments before she went on. "Are you ready?" she asked with a soft smile. Jessica turned, tears in her eyes. "You believed in me before I believed in myself. I'll never forget that." Karoline squeezed her hand. "Go out there and show them what America sounds like." Jessica stepped onto the stage to a packed auditorium and millions watching at home. From a Walmart cashier with tears in her eyes to a voice echoing through the nation. But this wasn't the end of her journey. It was only the beginning. As the cameras rolled, Jessica stood at the podium, her heart pounding like a drum. She glanced out at the faces in the auditorium, politicians, reporters, business leaders, and most importantly, working-class Americans who had come to share their stories. For a moment, she thought of that day back in Walmart. The fluorescent lights. The tears. The hopelessness. And then she remembered Karoline's words, "Go out there and show them what America sounds like." She took a deep breath, steadied her voice, and began. "My name is Jessica Hart. I used to believe that people like me didn't matter. That no one in power saw what we lived through. That our pain was background noise in a world too loud to care. But one day, someone did notice me. Not just my job title or my tears, but my humanity. And that moment changed my life forever." The audience was still. Silent. Listening. "I'm not here because I pulled myself up by the bootstraps alone. I'm here because someone reached back and offered me a hand. Because someone in the White House, of all places, said, 'Your story matters.' And today, I want to tell every person working 2 jobs, every caregiver crying in a parking lot, every college dropout who thinks they've missed their shot, you matter, too." Her voice broke slightly, but she powered through it. "This isn't about party lines. It's about people. It's about dignity. And it's about remembering that government exists for the people, not above them." The room erupted in applause. Even some of the more skeptical journalists were nodding along. And behind the curtain, Karoline wiped away a tear she hadn't expected to fall. Later that evening, Jessica sat with Karoline backstage, both sipping from styrofoam cups of lukewarm coffee. "I can't believe that just happened," Jessica said, stunned. Karoline smiled. "You earned that stage." Jessica turned to her. "You changed my life. Seriously. How do you say thank you for something like that?" Karoline paused, then leaned in. "You pay it forward." The next few months were a whirlwind. Jessica's blog was offered a publishing deal. She was invited onto national morning shows. Political podcasts wanted her take. Her perspective, grounded, authentic, and unpolished, resonated with Americans across the spectrum. But Jessica didn't let it get to her head. She turned her blog into a community platform, offering guest posts to single mothers, factory workers, part-time students, and anyone with a story to tell. She started a scholarship fund named after her father for low-income students who had to drop out of school. And when election season heated up, Jessica was approached by multiple campaign teams, Democrat and Republican alike, asking her to consult on working-class outreach. She declined them all. "I don't want to be a pawn," she told a stunned strategist. "I want to be a voice." It was exactly 1 year since that ordinary day at Walmart. The same store. The same checkout line. Jessica stood there again, this time not in a blue vest, but in a tailored blazer and crisp jeans. A camera crew flanked her, documenting her return for a feature story airing on primetime national TV titled From Aisle 7 to America's Heart, Jessica Hart's Journey. The store manager met her at the entrance with a hug. "We're so proud of you," he said. "Still feels like yesterday you were here working doubles." Jessica smiled, remembering the long nights, the rush of customers, the exhaustion. "It made me who I am." And then she saw her Cynthia, the young cashier working register 6. Probably no older than 19, with tired eyes and a name tag pinned too loosely to her polo shirt. Jessica recognized the look. It was her look 1 year ago. The barely held together fatigue. The quiet scream for hope. Jessica walked over slowly. "Hey there," she said softly. "I used to stand in that exact spot." Cynthia looked up, confused for a second. Then her eyes widened. "Wait, are you Jessica Hart?" Jessica smiled. "In the flesh." The camera crew stayed respectfully back. Jessica leaned on the counter like she'd done 100 times before. "You okay?" she asked gently. The girl hesitated, then gave a shaky nod. "Just tired. My mom's been sick. Working extra hours." Trying to save for school. Jessica nodded. I've been there. She paused, reached into her bag, and pulled out a worn notebook. This was my journal. From my Walmart days. I want you to have it. Cynthia blinked. What? I can't. Yes, you can, Jessica said. You're going to write your own story in there. Page by page. It starts now. That night, after the shoot, Jessica flew back to Washington, D.C., this time not as a guest, but as a keynote speaker at a national summit on economic inclusion. Karoline introduced her with a speech that brought the room to its feet. When we talk about policy, we throw around words like working class or everyday American like statistics. But I met Jessica Hart not as a policy case, but as a person. And she reminded all of us that every policy should have a face behind it. A name. A story. Jessica took the stage, thanked Karoline with a smile, and launched into her address. We often think change comes from the top, from lawmakers and leaders. But sometimes change begins when someone simply says, I see you. The crowd applauded. Senators and mayors wiped their eyes. She continued. This isn't about politics. It's about purpose. About building a country that doesn't just measure its success in GDP, but in human dignity. Months later, Jessica would be honored with the Presidential Citizens Medal for her work with the Frontline Foundation, the youngest woman in over a decade to receive the honor. As she stood at the White House, just feet from the very podium where Karoline delivered daily briefings, Jessica reflected on how life could turn on the smallest hinge, a glance, a kind question, a moment of presence. She found Karoline in the crowd, gave her a thumbs up, and mouthed the words, thank you. Karoline grinned back proudly. Later, at a quiet dinner between just the two of them, Karoline raised her glass. To the power of paying attention, she said. Jessica clinked her glass. And to never forgetting where we come from. That notebook? Years later, Jessica would find it again. It had been returned to her, filled now with Cynthia's words, raw, emotional, determined. And on the inside cover was a note. I don't know where this will take me. But because of you, I believe it'll be somewhere better. Cynthia. And just like that, the cycle began again. One heart at a time. One story at a time.